quick hello to start. I see some clients, I see some friends, I see some family members on this call. So thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Sarin Barsumian, and I am the founder of SMB Financial Strategies. And welcome to our Spark Joy organizational workshop. So we've dedicated an hour this evening, and I honestly can't think of a better way to start 2022. I am much more of an organizer, although, you know, my husband really wishes I was much more of a cleaner, but, you know, you can't win them all. But before we get started and before I turn it over to Melissa, I do want to take this opportunity to have Lumina say a quick hello to some of our clients because they haven't met yet. And then we'll have Melissa kick off the night. Lumina?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lumina. Oh, and my thing actually says Gershfield Cordova family down there. Okay, so I'm Lumina Gershfield Cordova, and I'm really excited to join the SMB team and to have been hired by Sarin. Started a little bit in September and then came on full-time in December. So you'll be hearing a lot from me, and it's really exciting for me to meet all of the clients in the SMB community. We did have a workshop 2 weeks ago and I got to meet some of you. But for a lot of you, I'm seeing you for the first time. So hello, and thanks for letting me come into your inbox often. We are sending more emails and trying to activate the community. So also in that spirit tonight, please do feel free to participate. This is a workshop and we're not talking at you, but we're talking with you, and your comments and your questions really enrich the conversation. And Melissa has a lot to share with us. But yeah, without further ado, Melissa Klug has been trained by Marie Kondo herself. So let's soak in her words of wisdom and peacefulness.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's so nice to meet everyone. I'm going to pull up my presentation. Can everybody see my screen? I hope. Okay, awesome. I am so excited to be here. So I'm going to try to dial down my level of enthusiasm because I get very excited to talk about these things. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, but I spent a lot of time of my life in a job that I didn't realize until I didn't work there anymore that I actually had not liked my job for like a really, really long time. And I now have a job that I am full on obsessed with. And so I get very enthusiastic when I talk about this. So like Lumina said, she'll be monitoring the chat. So if you guys have questions, if I'm going too fast or if you're like, wait, I really want to know more about this, but I promise I'll leave time for questions because usually when I do presentations, people have a lot of questions. And I just want to tell you before I start, this is a process. Organizing, if you really, really want to devote yourself to organizing, it can be a very emotional process. And that may sound silly. It may sound like, oh my gosh, it's just kind of getting rid of some stuff, but it definitely can be an emotional process. And for different people, you have different challenges. So I would definitely tell you that, and Lumina has all my information. If there is a question that you have that is really a burning question that you're not interested in discussing in front of a large group of people, some of whom you don't know, please contact me directly. And I will be absolutely happy to answer it because you've participated on this. It's definitely a good thing, but I will get started. I am here to talk about the life-changing magic of tidying up your home and your life. And what I discovered, and I'll tell you a little bit about my background, but what I discovered as a person who used to not be organized and then became organized is it legitimately changes your life to get your home in order. And when you think about your home, it is your sanctuary. It's supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe space, especially the last 2 years. We have lived at home. We've been home a lot. And so I want everybody to feel that peace and that happiness of their home feeling good, but also I want to make sure that people know that this really can change your whole life. It can change your outlook on possessions. It can change your outlook on, because this is a financial word, we talk about finances. It changed our whole relationship with consuming, buying, spending money, saving money. So there are just a lot of things that can come from this. So I am very excited to be here. Thank you very much for spending your evening with me. Because we do have a lot of Massachusetts Bostonians, we've got Boston, Massachusetts all around. I just want to point out, I did live in Boston. So Lumina asked me, have you ever been to Boston? I'm like, oh, I lived there. So I spent time in Boston, absolutely loved it. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but I do have an ongoing obsession with Dunkin' Donuts since we were talking about coffee. I do have a print up here of Audrey Hepburn with a cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Dunkin' Donuts has finally made its appearance in Massachusetts, which is Minnesota rather, where I live. So I was very excited to be able to feel like I'm back in Boston. So happy to be with some Massachusetts residents tonight. So, all right, let's see. Why won't it let me switch? Hold on. There we go. So just a little bit about me. I spent 20 plus years in corporate America. So I started out my career with, the reason I lived in Boston is because I worked for a paper company. People usually insert office jokes here. It was a little bit like that, but I had a job when I first started out for a paper company where I traveled all over New England selling paper. And I moved on. I had a lot of different things that I did in my life, but I was in a role where I was a global marketing manager for a huge multinational paint company. And I found myself in a situation that, I had been traveling nonstop for 20 years. I had 2 kids, and those kids I got 6 weeks to stay home with them. And then I was back on the road, was just gone all the time. And I found myself in a position where my company went through a merger, actually an acquisition. And I was in a very unusual position that I never thought I'd found myself in, which is my job didn't exist anymore after that merger. And I really left, and I was having an identity crisis of well, this is who I've been. This is my whole life. My career was a huge part of my life. And I found myself at home, and I looked around and I go, this place is a full-on disaster. And I'll show you pictures just in case you don't believe me. It really was a disaster. And so I ended up doing this as a career because I found out that I absolutely became obsessed with getting my house in order. So I traded conference rooms and traveling all the time for being inside people's closets. This may feel weird. I don't know if you can see behind me. I'm presenting to you from my closet tonight. I have what I call a cloffice, a closet office. I did it, if I'm being honest, during the pandemic when everybody was home and my husband was home, my kids were home, and I needed a quiet place for everyone to kind of leave me alone. And I discovered that my clothing was a really nice, nice little quiet spot for me. But so I really have gone from conference rooms to closets as I present to you from my closet. But I'm happy to show you my closet too, in case you just want to see am I actually organized? Happy to show you my closet. But this is just going to give you a little bit, just a teensy tiny glimpse. And by the way, I'm happy to send out these slides afterwards so you can take a look deeply. But this is just a tiny glimpse of my real life. I joke that I used to call myself a trash panda. Our house seriously was pure chaos 100% of the time. So the middle picture, that was actually my desk where I worked, just stuff everywhere. The closet to the left, that was our mud room. Things just went there and disappeared and we would never find them again. This post, every once in a while, Facebook on this day brings something up that I'm like, yeah, I forgot I used to be like that. Where I said, I'm obsessed with the tiny house blogs. I really am obsessed with a tiny house. I'd like to have one day. And my husband's like, I don't get it. You love stuff. How could you possibly do that? And I was like, because that'd be my second house. And I would only have wine there. And as he said, you'd have one giant crap filled house and then a tiny house for the weekend. And that was true. Our house seriously just was stuffed to the gills. And until I found myself at home trying to figure out what I was going to do next in my career, I hadn't really stopped and looked and said, oh my gosh, this is pure chaos. And one of the things that I will tell you that after we got organized, my husband said to me, as we used to have, I have a friend who is a stylist, a clothes stylist. And she has this great phrase I love, which is, she said, some of my clients have a floordrobe instead of a wardrobe. All their clothes are on the floor. That is absolutely what we had. Our entire bedroom, the closet, everything was just covered with clothes. And my husband said to me after we got organized, he goes, I didn't realize it, but when I walked into our room, I would get stressed out. It made me anxious, but I didn't know that it made me anxious until we changed. And so that's one thing that I want to tell you. If you're sitting here, and I know everybody comes from a different perspective, you might be here and saying, hey, I'm super organized. I'm just looking for a few tips. Maybe you're saying, boy, I feel like this is my house. I really want to change too. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Wherever you are, I can tell you from my own experience and my family's experience that your stuff may be stressing you out more than you think. And especially now, we don't have time to get into pandemic brain and everything else, but there are really real scientific brain changes that we have experienced in the last couple of years, no matter what your experience has been. And it is really something that I have seen, that the amount of stuff you have around you and the chaos that is around you, when you start to eliminate that, it helps you in so many ways. And we definitely saw that in our house, including with our kids. So as I was sitting at home, and I said, what am I going to do? I had this time, which was a gift. And I said, well, I'm going to de-trash our house. I am going to give us a space. I'm never going to have this time again. And so I am really going to tackle this. And this is an absolutely true story. I told myself, this was in 2017 and 2018 that this happened. And I said, you know what? There was this book I read a few years ago. It was that Marie Kondo book. I read it, but I folded my clothes like origami like one time, and then I never did it again. Right. And so I was like, where is that book? And absolutely 100% true story. I could not find the book. I did eventually find it. After I organized my house, I found it, but I said, I'm going to go read that book. I had to repurchase it, which is another joy of organizing, is you don't repurchase things 100 times. I repurchased it and I read it, and it just clicked with my brain. I said, this makes sense to me. And one of the things that made the most sense to me is, one, she had a lot of rules. So I was like, cool, I can just follow these rules and I'm going to follow them to a T. And the other thing that made sense to me was her concept of, and there's a lot of misconception about Marie, if you're out in the Twitter world or whatever. Marie doesn't want you to get rid of everything in your house. She doesn't want you to be a minimalist. She wants you to have the things in your house that truly are meaningful to you and important to you, or important to the function of your house. She wants you to keep the things in your house, and she wants you to choose the things you keep in your house versus choosing the things that you get rid of. And so I really liked that idea of, I am making an active choice about what gets a spot in my house. And so I read the book, I faithfully implemented the whole system, and in that process really changed everything about our home life. So what we ended up doing is we said goodbye to about 60% of the things that we owned. And by the way, there was only one thing that we realized that we gave away that was a mistake. It was a pair of lacrosse shoes for my daughter. So we replaced them for about $20. And so I think a $20 mistake for the overall gains that we got was pretty good. But one of the things that I want to tell you, depending on where you're coming from, if you're coming from a house that feels extremely overwhelming, you don't know where to start, I am telling you, I am living proof that change is possible. I can tell you, anybody who was in my house could tell you, man, I cannot believe that Melissa has been able to make this change. You absolutely can make a change. This picture, hopefully people can see it on the left-hand side. These are my children trying to go into the witness protection program because they are clearly, rightfully so, that is how my kitchen looked all the time. And we have been able to keep this up for going on 4 years now. So please know that you can change, you can do something different. And I am absolutely here to give you the tools to be able to do that. I will just back up really quickly and say, just to finish it off, when I had decided that I was doing my whole house, the only thing that sounded exciting to me, people would say, what do you want to do as a career? And the only thing I kept coming back to was I want to have other people feel as good as I do about my house. But I was like, that's not a job. So I don't know. I don't really know how I'm going to do that. And what ended up happening is, thanks to the joys of social media, I found out that Marie Kondo was certifying people to be organizers. And I told my husband, I have this really crazy idea. And he said, I don't think it's a crazy idea at all. And fast forward a few years later, I have a thriving organizing business here in Minneapolis. And I am very fortunate that I have had so many clients that have worked with me. I love my clients. They're just lovely human beings. But I am one of about 50 people in the world who is master level certified by Marie. So what that means is I have had more organizing hours than almost anybody else using Marie's method. And so it's really, I have embraced it and I live it. And I really love bringing it to people now. So I know that we were talking a little bit before everybody got on about like, what is Marie really like? The answer is very tiny, very, very tiny. It's not quite as obvious in this picture. So I'm like 5'3". So I am not a tall person. Marie is very teeny. And she is very lovely, like really just exudes joy in person. So and also I just posted on my social media. I do have some things that I believe are absolutely out of bounds for my organizing skills. And one of them is fitted sheets. I do not believe that fitted sheets are possible. Like you can't fold them. It's just impossible. And I understand there may be some people on this presentation saying that's not true. I know how to fold a fitted sheet. I am very happy for you. But what I tell people frequently is I will not do them. And two, I have seen Marie Kondo fold a fitted sheet in person and it's not that great. So that is the truth. So what I want to talk about a little bit just to start out is we have a crisis of stuff in the United States. So the volume of self-storage units in the country, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country, but I know here they're like every 4 feet, it feels like. So the volume of self-storage units in the country could fill the Hoover Dam 26 times. So 10% of Americans pay $1,000 a year or more on storage. And just based on the people I work with, one of the things that I tell people a lot is those are just the storage units that we're paying for. But a lot of people, I try to get you to think about, do you actually have a storage unit inside your own house? So if you have a room in your house or multiple rooms where you can't use that room because it's filled with stuff, what I tell people sometimes is like, what's the square footage of that room? And then you can say, what did I pay for my house? What's my price per square foot that I paid for my house? And you multiply that out. And then you say, oh my gosh, I'm actually paying for a storage unit inside my own house. Here in Minnesota, very cold. I have a lot of clients that can't use their garage to park because it's filled with stuff. And in a lot of cases, one of the things that I really kind of hurts my heart is a lot of times those things haven't been looked at in years. So it's taking up space in your house and it's taking up space in your brain. And so I love to have people figure out a way that they can release those things so that you can use your full house. One of the things that I encourage people to do is use your house however it works for you. So I turned my dining room into an office. I obviously also turned my closet into an office. It's your house. You can do whatever you want with it, but I would love to see you be able to use the full space in your house for whatever that is. If that's a reading room, if you want to expand your kitchen, anything that you want to do with your house, do it, but keep the things that really, really make sense and don't have storage unit in your house if you don't have to. All right. There is a great study that I love. It was done by UCLA and it talked about, our life is very intense. Obviously, this was done way pre-pandemic, so our life is even more intense now in a lot of ways. And so in our culture, a lot of times what we do is we reward ourselves with stuff or we reward our loved ones with stuff. I see it a lot with parents where we buy kids tons of stuff because we want them to be entertained and we want them to be educated. But that amount of stuff that we're always tripping over and that we have everywhere in our house, it increases stress. So all that impact on your brain that we were talking about, especially for moms, tons of stuff just keeps increasing the level of stress. So moms will talk about their house and say, not fun, very chaotic. And I hope you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but hopefully people feel like, yeah, that I connect with that. I feel that way about my house. yeah, it's definitely, it can be a stress, especially if you have little kids, but even if you don't, we all just collect a lot of stuff. And so our house, which is supposed to be our safe spot, our sanctuary, sometimes can end up being a source of stress for us. Okay, this is something that sometimes is controversial, but this is just a factual statement. Organizational supplies. So you walk into the Container Store. I understand it is very alluring, or target the organizational section. What a lot of people do is they decide, cool, I'm going to get organized. I'm going to go buy like 100 bins. And this goes back to, you know, we're all here because of a commonality of finances and making sure that we're being financially and fiscally responsible. Sometimes people feel like we'll buy $300 worth of organizational supplies. And what I end up finding a lot is they're very pretty, but it gives people a false sense of security that, cool, I'm just going to buy all these bins and I'm magically going to become organized. So what I say to people sometimes is, you're actually buying stuff to put your too much stuff in. So you're buying more stuff to put your stuff in, and buying bins. So any sort of organizational supplies is your last step in the organizational process. You have to decide what stays in your house. And then only then you say, what do I have left? And how do I organize that in the most useful, functional way? So if you are a person who loves bins, completely understand, but keep it till the end. So don't get the organizational bug and then say, cool, I'm going to go out and spend $500, spend no money. What I usually find is, and this is a phrase I use with my kids a lot, shop inside your own house. You can actually usually find a lot of really key organizational supplies inside your own house that you might already own, perhaps from another well-intentioned trip in the past to an organizational supply store. Does anyone feel personally attacked by what I just said? Hopefully not. So we just want people to do things in the right way and give yourself.
My husband would be very happy to hear you saying this.
That's good.
First thing I want to do is always go to Target and load up on all the organizational bins.
So I'm just telling you, make that your last step. And I'll explain why we do it in that way. So this is one that this is this picture that I always love is one of the things too, distraction is a very real problem in organizing. So the other thing we do is we go, oh my gosh, I can't stand this. I've got to get my house organized. And so what you do then is you say, okay, cool. I'm going to organize the kids' room, or I'm going to organize my bedroom. Okay. Oh my gosh, I have so much laundry to do. I need to go do the laundry. Oh, I ran out of laundry detergent. I'm just going to run out really quickly and buy laundry detergent. Oh, I should probably also get some organizational supplies while I'm out. Oh, you end up doing that squirrel thing, right? And so this is a thing I love because when you're cleaning your room and you get distracted by all the stuff you find. So one of the things I try to do with clients is we keep a plan. And this is why I was so attracted to Marie's book and her teaching, because you have a very regimented plan. And so you say, nope, this is the path I'm on. I'm on this road, and that road is very skinny, and I'm not going to veer off to the right or the left. And it helps you keep on track, because otherwise it is very simple to do a couple things. One, to get distracted. Two, also to decide after like 5 minutes that, well, like watching Netflix sounds maybe a little bit more exciting, and I think I'm going to go do that. So we want to give people a plan, because what will often happen is when you start to organize, again, out of the best of intentions, you can get overwhelmed pretty easily, especially if you're working in a space that is very chaotic. And I know this because, again, I've been there. So what we try to do to reduce overwhelm is the physical feeling of being overwhelmed is you can get past that by knowing what to do next. So overwhelmed is just, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. And so what we try to do in this process is reduce it down to give you a plan so that you can say, nope, okay, I can't get overwhelmed because right now all I'm doing is looking for this specific category of things to organize. So, all right, before we go into kind of the actual rules, do we have any opening questions that people want to ask? It's okay if the answer is no. Just want to make sure.
Well, how do you how do you stop from being distracted? Because I relate to that. That photo looks like me the other day.
Okay.
So
Well, I bet you would look beautiful with that headpiece on, by the way.
something very similar, yeah.
Yes. So the key to not getting distracted, it's a great question. What I find is you've got to give yourself kind of mileposts, right? Like you have to give yourself some goals and say, okay, I know myself very well. And so I know that I will probably get distracted very quickly. So I need to make a rule that I am going to organize for, let's call it an hour. And then I get a 5-minute break, or I get to have a glass of wine, or I get to have a snack, or whatever thing is going to make you happy at the end of that. But that getting distracted, and I'm going to get into a little bit of how you reduce that distraction specifically by categorizing things. But it is definitely about, I have a plan and I'm not going to veer from it. And I also know that there's something good on the other side of this. So I am just going to do this one little thing. And I promise myself that when I have all these things around me, I'm also going to get to those, but it's maybe not right now. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
Do you also help when you're with people, Melissa? Like keep them from getting distracted? So like, do you recommend someone has someone with them? Like,
I do. I sometimes I have a very lovely client who told me once that I'm a very expensive babysitter, and that is a fact. In some cases, my job is just to be like, no, we're going to go right back here. And I actually physically, I have a lovely client whom I've been working with for a long time. And the other day, I'm like, sweetie, I physically moved her back to where we were going. So it's awesome if you have someone with you, if that is something that you feel like. We all have to know ourselves, right? And some people are like, nope, I really need someone right by my side to do this. Some of us are able to try to say like, hey, I'd like to try it on my own first and see if I can get it done. And then if not, I want to hire someone. The other thing too, is if you have someone in your family, that this can backfire. Just by the way, you need to get the right person. Sometimes family members, it's not a great idea, but if you have someone that is really, would be a fun person to work with, they can also be a guide on that path. But I obviously love working with people, and I see the benefit of working with people, because one of the things that when I work with a client, you have that dedicated time, like it is a schedule and it's on your calendar. And so you have to say, I'm spending 3 hours with Melissa. And so you can't then just say, well, but maybe I'll just do this one thing first, or boy, a nap sounds good. So even if you don't end up hiring a professional organizer in your area, you can also put those boundaries on yourself and say, I have an appointment with myself for 3 hours, and I have an appointment with my house. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
That helps a lot. And we're at 7:32 now.
Okay, so great to know.
We'll get to questions about 7:50, but I'm just
okay. I will speed up. So Marie has 6 key rules, and the first rule is to commit yourself to actually wanting to get organized. So this commitment is something that you make to yourself, and you say, I want to do different things, and I want to treat my house differently. So that is really just a commitment that you make and say, I am ready to move forward. Imagine your ideal lifestyle. So this is one of the things I love about Marie's method, is that we ask people at the beginning to say, if you could wave a magic wand, imagine what your home looks like, imagine what it feels like. When you imagine that ideal lifestyle, and by the way, you can do this room by room. You can say, what do I want my bedroom to feel like and look like? When you imagine that, when you're having those moments where you are distracted or feeling like you'd rather do something else, you have to put that vision in your mind and say, but there is something amazing at the end of this process. And it's that ideal lifestyle. It's that ideal room. It's that ideal space. So I understand that may feel like a little bit woo-woo. And I totally understand that may be a little uncomfortable, but I promise you, it's something that gives you that light at the end of the tunnel of the process. Rule 3 is to finish discarding first. So this is what I was saying about, please don't go out and buy a bunch of bins. What we want you to do is say, I have gone through my whole house and decided what stays and what goes. After I do that, then I have a good idea of what I have left. And then I can decide what's my ideal way to make this fully organized for my life. Tidy by category and not location. So this is something that is really important to prevent that distraction and overwhelm. So instead of saying, I'm going to organize just one room, you say, I'm going to organize by category, and I'll go through the categories in a second. This is a way to say, I know, for instance, where every single thing is in my house, and then I can make the best decisions. So I'll go into categories a little bit in a second. Follow the right order. So the categories go in a certain order. And the reason they go in that order is because it goes from easier things to harder things. So as an example, if you started organizing and you say, I'm going to organize all of my photographs, then you immediately are like, well, I can't, this is too overwhelming. I can't do this. You start with something that is a lot easier, and then you develop the skills of what stays, what goes, what sparks joy. And then you can get to those harder things and know exactly what you want to keep. The last one is ask yourself if it sparks joy. So this is what most people know about Marie and her method, but the idea of what sparks joy for you is extremely personal. What sparks joy for me is not what sparks joy for anyone else. You get to make that decision for your house. But what I want you to do is think about, hey, is this a thing that I really want to keep in my house? Now, what a lot of people ask is like, hey, a paper clip is not going to spark joy for me. I'm not going to be like, this is my favorite paper clip that I've ever had in my entire life. That is true. But spark joy can also mean I am very grateful that I would have this item when I need it. And it is something that is important to me. It does not have to be your favorite paper clip. It can just be something that's useful to you. But one of the things that I want to leave you with, if you don't listen to anything else I say about organizing, I say that there are 4 bad words of organizing: might, could, maybe, and someday. So what I see a lot with clients is they say, I might need this 7 years in the future. I could use this. I could use this broken paper clip to break into a locked door someday. Might, could, maybe, I maybe need this thing. I don't really know what it is. This is my favorite. When people say, I don't know what it is, but maybe I'm going to need it. If you don't know what it is, you're probably not going to know what it is if you're looking for it. And then someday is the hardest one. Someday I might need to use this item. And those 4 things, and it's not to say that they're not legitimate arguments, but think about yourself. If you are looking at an item and you're saying, I might use this, I could use this, someday I might need it, maybe I need it. Think about that as like, wait a minute, is it really then that important? Because it is a great way. Those 4 words are a great way to hold on to everything in your house. So, all right. I already flipped that one. Okay. One of the things we talked about in this process is gratitude and respect for your belongings. So what a lot of people struggle with in the discarding process is a few things. One, it could be shame. I'm ashamed that I collected all these things. I'm ashamed that my house got to this point. A lot of people feel ungrateful that like someone gave me a gift and I really don't like it. I don't want it. I am never going to use it, but someone gave it to me, so I feel guilty getting rid of it. There are a lot of emotions that come up in organizing. And so one of the things we do in the KonMari method is we actually show gratitude and respect for our belongings. And so this helps us release things. So if you have something that you're like, hey, Aunt Mary gave this to me, but I do not collect these types of collectibles. I really just don't want this. You can say, I want to be grateful to Aunt Mary for giving this gift to me. I always love how much love she showed to me at the holiday time. I appreciate it, but I am going to let this go and I'm going to let someone else use this item. So that's why we show gratitude and respect. So a lot of people, when they hear about KonMari, they're like, I'm not going to thank my t-shirt for doing its job. But what I can tell you is if you have a hard time parting with things, I have said on many occasions, my husband can make a CVS receipt sentimental. Okay. So if you are a person that has a hard time letting go of things, this process, as cheesy as it sounds, we started doing it in our house as a joke. And then we started to feel like, hey, this actually helps us release that guilt and let that item go. So spark joy is that very personal feeling of like, hey, I can't explain it, but this t-shirt that has 72 holes in it, it's really important to me. Cool. It sparks joy for you. You get to keep it. All right. So organizing by category. I'm going to go through this just because I want to make sure there's enough time for questions, and I am happy to stay over time. So I will very, very quickly go through the rest, but clothing. So this is the first category that we start with because it is an easier category than anything else. Now, I will say, because there are mostly women on this presentation, clothing can sometimes be a challenging topic for women. Sometimes there's emotion wrapped up in clothing, whether it's about sizes or things we used to be able to wear that we don't wear anymore, things we bought that we never wore, all millions of emotions. But clothing as the first category is the easiest category in general, because we're pretty used to saying like, hey, I don't need this t-shirt anymore. I can have that go away. So this is what we start with. This is the key when we talk about how to prevent overwhelm. We do things by category, which means no matter where clothing is in your house, you're going to deal with all the clothing at the same time. So, by the way, the same time doesn't have to be in a one-day period. It might be that it takes you a few days or a few weekends to do this, but I want you to start with clothing and then deal with all the clothing in your house. So that includes your winter coat closet downstairs. It includes basement storage. It includes things that you might have in the trunk of your car that you never actually took to the donation center. Any place that you have clothing in your house, I want you to take it out. And what you're going to do is you're going to look at every single piece of clothing and say, does it spark joy? If you don't want to say, does it spark joy? You can say, is it worth it to stay in my house? Is it worth it to stay? Or does it get to gratefully be given to a donation center? But all of your clothing goes together in your first try. The thing I will tell you is, back to the distraction thing, categorizing, which is what this is. Categorizing is the magic, and it's what makes everything in this process work. So if you, other than Mike could maybe in someday, if you take nothing else from this, when you're organizing, categorize things. So instead of looking at a room and saying, I don't even know what to do, you take things out and you say, that's a clothing item, that's a stationary item. You put things in their categories, and then you decide whether they stay or go. That is where the magic happens. And that's the major difference of this. You do not have to follow the KonMari method faithfully if it doesn't work for you, but I'm telling you, categorizing is magical. All right, I'm going to skip past this. I can talk about that at a different time. Books is the next category. So if you're a book lover like I am, this can be a challenging category, but what I will tell you is, a lot of people, including myself, major book lover, I had tons of books that I realized, oh, I was kind of just keeping that like as a decoration. I have no intention of ever reading it. Or in a lot of cases, people have books that they say like, oh, I might need to refer back to that. My MBA book, my finance book from MBA that I took for 20 years ago, I'm never going to look at that book again, right? So please go through this process and say like, hey, am I really going to read that again? Am I really ever going to reference that again? Be brutally honest with yourself in this category. Then the next category is papers. And this is legit my favorite. If I could create an entire business just organizing people's papers, I would 100% do it. And this is a category that people tend to keep way too much paper. I will go into people's house and they will have paper, like receipts from things that are 30 years old from 2 houses ago that they don't own anymore, an appliance they don't own anymore, but they still feel like, well, I need to keep it just in case. So paperwork is one where categorizing that and saying, hey, these are old financial documents that I no longer need. Anything that you have that is really, really old, really think about rationalizing that. And one of the things that I want to make sure people don't do is sometimes people tend to say, I'm just going to digitize all my paper. Don't take one type of clutter and then trade it for a different type of clutter. Digital clutter is still clutter. So what I want you to do, especially on paperwork, is please digitize things that it makes sense to digitize, but please don't digitize everything. So key questions that I ask clients are, can I get this item online? In a lot of cases we can, and then you can download things, you can keep them. When was the last time I referenced this piece of paper? In a lot of cases, the answer is never. If something happened, this is one of my favorites. People are like, well, I have to keep this owner's manual. Or there was one the other day, it was a furnace, and it was an installation manual for a furnace. And I said, are you going to reinstall your furnace at any point? No, you're going to call a repair person. Would I just Google this or YouTube it first rather than refer to the manual? Also, every manual on earth is online. The biggest question that I ask people is, what is the actual amount of work? What is the worst case scenario that would happen if I discarded this piece of paper? So there are always ways to have paper that is recreated. So the key pieces of paper that you need: taxes back a certain number of years. We could discuss, I'm sure our financial advisor would have a rule on tax documents, house titles, car titles, legal documents, any major legal documents. But what I see sometimes is people who have a utility bill from 25 years ago, and we can say goodbye to those. So paperwork. Then the fourth category is kimono, and kimono is the Japanese word for miscellaneous. So kimono is a really big category, and that includes your kitchen. It includes your garage. It can include all of your electronic things. It can include a lot of different things. So kimono is the biggest category, but this segment is really where your house has the most change because it encompasses so many spaces in your house. So the key to this category is categorizing. So making sure that you keep on that path and you say, okay, today I am doing tools. Or today I am doing my kitchen. Kitchens usually take a long time. So categorizing and then saying, I have 2 hours today. I can't get my whole kitchen done in 2 hours. Could I do my coffee mugs and my drinkware and my Tupperware, for instance? So categorizing into those smaller subcategories and then saying what stays, what goes, that is where you can prevent that overwhelm. So kitchens, I'm going to stop here for just 2 seconds because what I typically find with people is you move into your house, moving is stressful. You throw things in a cabinet. You're like, this is fine. I'm going to put my plates here. And then those plates never move out of their spot. That kitchen is that way forever and ever. And what I find is that people never change those spots. They never really look at, do I actually use the things in this drawer? So one of the things that I really, really, really recommend, even though it might sound painful, is whatever space you're organizing, take everything physically out of the cabinets and start with a blank slate and say, where does it actually make sense for me to put things back? What I find is that people sometimes have really prime real estate in their kitchen that they're using for things that they don't use very often. So if you have your cookware, for instance, really far away from your stove, maybe it's time to reevaluate where those things go. Maybe it's time to reevaluate, like, hey, can I put my things that I only use once a year, like things that I only use at the holiday time? Can I put that in a total different spot in my kitchen? Can I put those in storage so then I leave the space in my kitchen for the things that are really the heavy use items? So giving yourself that prime real estate in your kitchen for the things that you use all the time versus like the thing I always talk about are drawer catchers, like the potato masher that sticks in the drawer and then you can't get the drawer open and like all that stuff. Just take all that stuff out and move it and leave it only for the stuff you use all the time.
Melissa?
Yeah.
Carrie had a quick question about like seasonal items.
Yes.
And it seems relevant right here with the kitchen. It was about gravy boats. She said, what are your thoughts on seasonal items? We disagree on how many seasonal items are really needed. For example, My wife has 2 gravy boats, 1 electric and 1 not electric. Seems excessive to me. This comes up a lot around cookware.
Yeah.
What do you say about multiples?
So what I say is about that. So first of all, seasonal in general, I say if you only use it for certain times of the year, definitely try to get it. If you have a space in your house where you can store those things and just bring them out at that time, please do that. The number of items that people have, especially for very specialty items, I ask people to say, like, really, let's have a ruthless examination of those. Is it really necessary? And so do you actually use 2 gravy boats as an example? I'm not trying to take a side here. I don't want to cause a marital spat. But do you actually use those things? Do you have one that you can say, I really have a huge preference for this? Seasonal items are things that can get out of control very quickly. And so I think trying to rationalize and saying like, what's the most amount of people we would ever have in our house for Thanksgiving? And I'm going to rationalize those items. So those are things that you have to do that self reflection of how much stuff do I actually need? And are those a might, could, maybe someday item? All right. The last category is sentimental. This category is really hard. This is all, and by the way, anything can be sentimental. So a sweatshirt can be sentimental. There are lots of things that can be sentimental. You decide what sentimental is, but the key to this category is really patience and kindness to yourself. I would also say it's very important. Sometimes it's not the right time to organize. So if you have just experienced, for instance, a loss of someone, it is not the right time to say like, hey, that was 2 weeks ago. I'm going to go through all of my pictures of that person. Please give yourself that grace to say it's not quite the right time for me. Okay, so those are the categories. I have a lot of other stuff. Like I said, I could talk about this for 17 years. Do you care if I go just a teensy bit longer and then I can stay on to answer people's questions?
So actually a lot of the questions right now about where the stuff goes,
okay.
There's been several questions right now about like where to shred papers,
okay.
where to donate items.
Yeah. Okay, so this is something that stops a lot of people from organizing. So I really want to talk about, please do not be afraid to organize because you don't know where something goes. I can tell you professional organizers in your area are probably great resources. I can tell you that a lot of organizers have resource guides on their website. So if you want to search for an organizer in your area, or if you have a specific question, I can help you even from far away. But a lot of people stop organizing because they go, well, I don't really know where my old computers go, so I guess I just have to keep them forever. And I really want to encourage you. My experience is, no matter what you have, there is a place that you can take it. So I swear to you, there are places you can take it. So a few things. Sorry, I thought I had a slide on here. So one thing, a ton of stuff can go to regular donation spots. So some people have preferences on their donation spots. Obviously, Goodwill, Salvation Army are some of the national ones that people know really well. I can tell you there are people that have preferences to go more local places or to know exactly where the charity is that supports the donation site. Any area you live in, I have clients in very tiny towns in Iowa who have really amazing donation centers at local churches, local thrift stores. So you can do research in your area and research where those donation sites send their money, what they do with their proceeds. But a lot of those major donation sites will take a lot of things. Now, obviously for more specialized things, electronic waste is another one that just stops people in their tracks. So depending on where you live, there are lots of counties and areas now that have electronic waste sites that are open all the time. So it used to be that you had to wait like 6 months until they had an electronic waste drop off. And then it was like a line 2 miles long and you couldn't get in. Please check your local county or city, because you will be surprised if you look up electronic waste in your zip code. You probably have a local resource through your local government that will take those things. Shredding is another one. I am very big on document security. So as I am very passionate about getting rid of paper you don't need, I'm also very, very strict with my clients about please shred things. Please do not, it like really gives me stress when people just throw things in recycling or trash, like please shred things. Local places, UPS stores and FedEx stores have shredding services. A lot of times if you go online, they will have coupons for that service too. It tends to be about 50 cents or $1 per pound. In a lot of local areas, Google it also, because there might be a shredding resource, like a local shredding resource. I have a guy near my house that will come, he will drive to your house if you want to and pick up your shredding, shred it in front of you in a truck, and then you're done. So shredding is a resource that please Google it, because you will probably be surprised. But if you don't have anything near you, UPS, FedEx stores will do that too. Are there any other donation questions? About specific?
You guys can anyone who has one can unmute themselves and ask it right now. Are we moving into the question space or?
Yeah, in just a second. Let me just say one more thing. So my tip that I use for a lot of people is don't overlook Facebook Marketplace. So even if you don't like Facebook, it's okay to not be a Facebook person. Facebook Marketplace is a really, really great tool for if you have a piece of furniture in your house, for instance, that you do not want anymore. If you have bigger things in your house that you're just like, hey, I really just want to get this out of my house, listing it for free on Facebook Marketplace will get that out of your house in about 0.233 seconds. The other thing about Facebook Marketplace is, unlike Craigslist, which is a little scary. Facebook Marketplace, you can see the person that is interacting with you. You can see like, did they just make their profile yesterday? I don't love that. This person is truly local. They have 500 friends. It feels a little bit better to me. You can also, in my experience, you can just leave the thing outside. Someone will come and get it. It's a magical resource for saying goodbye to things that you don't really need anymore. So I will just end on this. Some don'ts for this process. Please don't be too hard on yourself. Understand that it can be a very hard process depending on where you're coming from. So please be kind to yourself. Please don't keep things out of a sense of guilt or those 4 words, could, maybe, someday. Really think about, can I let this go? What's the worst thing that could happen if I let this go? I have a happier, calmer, easier house. Please don't start with photographs or sentimental items because that'll take you to a screeching halt. Please do not fear letting go. I promise you, as someone who came from a very, very messy house and got rid of so much stuff, letting go is extremely freeing. I describe it as losing weight without having to go to the gym, which don't we all wish we could do that? Letting go, it's a physical release for you to take these things and to have the space made in your house. And I have had many clients, even clients that really struggle with letting go, say, once I take it to the donation spot, I don't ever think about it again. I am released of that guilt. It's a really amazing feeling. One thing that is sometimes controversial, please don't make decisions for others. As tempting as it is, I've given many presentations in my career, and I have many people who say like, well, my spouse, my significant other has too many XYZ. So when they're gone, I'm just going to get rid of those things. Please don't do that. It really, even if you're absolutely in the right, it creates a very challenging situation. One thing that I tell people, and it's hard to believe, is tidying is contagious. So once you start organizing, the people in your house will often tend to say, it feels good. I would like to participate in this too. It's not always, but making decisions for other people is one that can really bring the organizing process to a halt. Please do not think that perfection is the end goal. This is the last thing I'll say. You can go on Instagram and you can see beautiful pictures of the most gorgeously organized closets. And you see these perfect lined up things in your pantry. That is one moment of time. And I can tell you that people's houses do not look like that all the time, even if they're a professional organizer. Please do not look at social media or other things and say, oh, if I don't do it like this, then I've done it wrong. Your end goal is whatever you want for your house and whatever you want things to look like and how you want things to function. So please do not think that perfection is your goal. We want to just get progress, not perfection. So, all right. I'm sorry. I seriously could talk about this forever. So as many questions as you guys want, I'm here.
Don't apologize. You did great. That was awesome.
I have 7,000 more things I could say to you, but I'm going to open it up to any question.
It was just so fun to see you light up when you were talking about organizing.
It makes me so happy, you guys. Like it like warms my soul that I get to do this every day and help people.
So who wants to go first? Who wants to unmute and ask a question? Denise, you wrote something.
Hi there. This is so motivating.
Oh, yay!
My word for the year is changing to release. It is release. So I love it.
Yay.
So vision is success, right? So how you feel, this is what I'm taking away from this, how you feel at the end of it is kind of one of the things to hold on to as you're decluttering, right? So how, once you get to that state of clearing your clutter, how do you keep it that way? What are some tips to keep it that way?
That is a fabulous question. So I frequently, the bad news is no house is going to stay one way forever, right? Like I have a friend who has one of those letter boards, and she wrote one day, I just cleaned the house. Now we have to stop living here. No, I'm serious. that is like legit, right? Like, so I always say, unfortunately, like unlike Cinderella, you know, we're not going to have magical fairies that come in your house and clean it up at the end of the night. Like we do have to have maintenance. And so what I always remind people of is all of this is just habit development. So in the same way that you have a habit to wake up and brush your teeth in the morning, you develop a habit to keep up your house. So one book that I recommend everybody read, even if you say, I'm not organizing my house, I don't care. Please read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Okay, Lumina knows it. Okay, good. Lots of people know what it looks like. This book is so magical, and it will teach you so much about habits. It's a great audiobook too, but it's habit development. So one of the things that I try to do is I say at the end of the night, as an example, before I go upstairs to bed, even if I do not feel like it, I will clean up the kitchen. So I'll make sure that there is, you know, that a loaded dishwasher, the dishwashers go in. I make sure I just do like a sweep of the kitchen and dining room. It does not have to be perfect. Okay. But when I come downstairs in the morning to make coffee, it's like, oh, I'm so excited to not start my day being greeted by a load of dishes and, you know, just mess everywhere. It's habit development in all the parts of your house. So it is throwing your laundry in the hamper instead of on the floor. It is developing a habit of, you know, like saying every Sunday, no matter what, I'm doing laundry, or whatever that looks like for you. It's also, if you have kids, teaching them earlier than you think, maybe that you might think they're too young, they can develop habits early too. So I know that we probably have demographics all over the board in terms of family structure, but if you have kids, you can develop these habits with them too, and then model the habits for them. But definitely it's just a matter of, because I had this vision, I achieved this vision, now I want to keep it this way. Because when you go backwards, it doesn't feel good.
Marion, do you have your hand up?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Marion.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have to be quick. I'm picking up my kid. I'd love tips on how to get going. I always find I don't do the organizing and tossing because it feels too overwhelming to me. It seems like I need a day to do any of it. What's a good way to break it down?
So what I would suggest to you is pick something that is like really super bothering you. So let's say you have and make it manageable, right? So the kitchen junk drawer, everyone has it. I know someone that calls it the opportunity drawer, whatever you call it, it doesn't matter. Clean out one drawer and do it by the categorizing that I was talking about. So you can take one drawer and you can say, I'm putting the batteries over here. I'm putting the eyeglasses over here. I'm putting the electrical cords over here, whatever. Then you go category by category and you say what stays and what goes. And then you say, how am I going to reorganize this in a way that makes sense to me? So start small and give yourself a small achievable goal. So it could be a small space. It could be just one category where you say, I am just going to organize my yoga pants today. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to find every pair of yoga pants I own. And I am going to decide how many pairs of yoga pants I actually need in my life. And then I'm going to pick the ones that are my favorites. And let's say you're going to pick 10. Cool. I'm picking my 10 pairs of yoga pants. I'm going to learn how to fold them in a fun way. And I'm going to put them back in the drawer and boom, you've achieved something. So that overwhelm happens when you go, well, it's going to take me like 7 years to do my whole house. Yeah. You can do a tiny piece and have that win and take that win for yourself. And then once the ball starts going, you start to get addicted to it. That's the only way I can describe it. It's really, you're like, cool, what can I do next? So if nothing else, just start with your coffee mugs. I found out in our house, we had 47 coffee mugs for 2 human beings that drink hot beverages. I was like, how many freaking coffee mugs does one house need? It's not 47. Okay. So we rationalized it down to like 10. So start with coffee mugs. Start with something that's easy for you to say, cool, I can do this.
Good. Thank you. That's great. Marion, text me when you get your small win.
Yeah.
Who else has a question? Anyone else?
I'm going to throw one in that I get a lot. And this goes back to I do not want to start like any sort of marital situation, but I get a lot of questions about like my significant other does not want to do this, or flip side, my significant other is mad at me that I haven't done this. And then there is resentment. And then, like I said, a lot of emotions come up. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is really have, if it's possible for you, have an open conversation with your people and talk about, you know, if you're the one that really wants to drive the organizing, try to talk about like, why do I want this? And why am I feeling stress? And I would really love your support, but I understand if you don't want to participate. So when I started the process in my house, I did not expect another person to come along. I just said, I'm doing this for me and my own sanity. No, if no one else wants to come along, that's totally fine. I'm just going to do the things that affect me. But what I found is then the rest of my family was like, oh, cool. Even my kids were like, oh yeah, this is like better that our house doesn't have stuff exploding everywhere. So that organizing is contagious. It's not going to work in every case, right? Everybody has a different set of, relationship rules, but just try to bring your family along. And if it doesn't work, do the spots that you can impact and that impact yourself the most, and keep those spots of love for yourself. And hopefully people will come along with you.
How about CDs?
Yeah.
CDs.
So let me ask you this. Do you still use them? Like, do you still listen to them?
Some of them, but my husband has a lot of CDs and we have them, we listen to some of them, but not all of them.
Listen, I just want to applaud you that you said CDs, because I have some people that are like, but I have all these cassettes and what am I going to do with them? And I'm like, please, like, it's time to let them go. But so CDs, what I tell people is if you are willing to digitize them, that's the way most people tend to listen to music now. So there are ways that you can digitize them and then put them on your phone, on your computer, on, your sound system in your house. If you still listen to them though, if it really is an active thing where you have a CD player, you listen to them, I would say go through and rationalize and say, these are the ones that we still listen to. And then the ones that we don't listen to, if it's a situation where your husband has a really hard time parting with those, could you digitize those so he still has the songs, he still has the CDs, but they aren't taking up a lot of space in your house? I did have one client that really got very upset that she had paid, $15 for a CD, and that the place she took them was only going to give her 25 cents for them. That's another thing I could talk about for an hour about. Please understand that the resale market for things, you might want to say, like, I paid X number of dollars for something, I want that value in return. It's probably not going to happen. So kind of rationalize that in this process too.
And like you said at the beginning, there is also this hidden cost to how much those things are costing you, that you're actually getting back. No matter if you get dollars back or not, you're getting a certain amount of value back into your life that those things are taking away too.
You're getting value back in your house. You also, depending on everybody's tax situation is different, but a lot of people, even with the tax law changes, you can still write off donations. That is often the best way to get some value back for those items. The other thing too is I tell people the money is already spent. So that money is already gone. It is not like you are going to be spending money to send that item to the donation stop. It's been spent sometimes 10 years prior. So don't continue to add value to it. By keeping it in your house, you're actually adding value to it. So gratefully let it go. And it is going to feel so good, I swear.
Maybe that exercise of actually calculating your price per square foot of your house does give you a good mindset.
I have legitimately done it. Yeah, I have legitimately done it with people. And I have said, you are actually paying $200 a month or $500 a month. It's called your mortgage. Like you're paying like a chunk of your mortgage as storage in your house, whereas you could have this amazing space that you could use. So
powerful.
Digitizing photos is actually another really great one, because those can take up a lot of space. So that is, and it also helps to preserve the quality of the photo.
Yep.
So I know a few people that have done that. Ooh, we've got some hands up. I just saw May. Did you have a question? We can't hear you.
I think you're muted still.
There. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I am interested in the kitchen. So I have a pretty large kitchen as it is, but we always have lots of food.
Yeah.
And there isn't any space to really store it. I mean, lots of food, they come in for the beginning of the week and they get eaten and they, dwindle in a week or a week and a half. But really, they're all sitting on top of the counter because there's no place to put it. That's number one. Number two, I noticed your kitchen, when you cleaned it out, the garbage bin is no longer there.
Yeah.
Like, so where does that go? You need to make space for that, and something else goes. Okay.
So something that was important to us, and again, this is a very personal process. So you have to decide what function, like what kitchen function you need and what's important. For us, we made so much space in our kitchen by rationalizing what we actually needed, that we actually made so much space. Like the coffee cups is a good example. I had one entire cabinet that was just like coffee cups and another type of drinkware. So I had 2 entire cabinets of drinkware. We've got that down to like half of one cabinet, which meant I freed up space to get all of my appliances off the counter. That was important to me. I didn't want as much stuff on the counter. Then we freed up other space, which allowed us to put the garbage. So we actually did one of those pull-out garbage things inside one of our cabinets. That's what we wanted. And so what I find is when I ask people to take everything out of the cabinets, once you decide what you actually need to keep, so whether it's drinkware, plates, seasonal things, if you can find other places to put some of those infrequently used items, you free up a lot of space. So what I would encourage you to do is, like, if you do have a lot of things on the counter and you would prefer not to, is there space that you can create in cabinets or other places to start to move things around? So that's one thing that we try to do for people that want to keep cleaner counters.
Okay. Right.
I don't know if that answered, did I answer your question or not really?
I can try to. Food is hard to kind of put away somewhere, because once they're not seeing it, are they still there? People forget, and then they forget to eat them. But I can understand. Yeah.
So the other thing that you can do, so everybody has to know what kind of person they are. So I have some clients that if they don't see it, it absolutely does not exist. And so if it is not directly in front of them, it does not exist on the planet. Even if they know I just put it away in this cabinet, when that cabinet door closes, it's not there. So they have to visually see something. And so in a case like that, if that's the case, then you could create something where just create an eye-pleasing piece of storage on the counter where you say, cool, I'm going to get a nice basket or bin that fits on my counter. And then I can still put those things in there. So it looks a little bit more contained, but I still am able to see the item that's out there. So it's a matter of like figuring out what your people need. And then how do I make that happen in the most pleasing way that can allow me to reduce my stress?
So in this situation, some storage bins could be like helpful. Like I'm thinking about what I saw in your pantry. You have storage bins in your pantry. You're not saying don't use them. No. You're saying use them at the end.
Yes, I'm saying, and that's a great distinction. I do not want people to think that I hate all storage solutions. I absolutely do not. There are some glorious storage solutions out there. What I want you to do is I want you to think about, what do I actually need? So I have, I have a food storage problem. And so I have an actual need to be able to, get some clear storage bins for, my food items, or I would like to contain things a little bit more. So I want to find the right storage solution for it, but please make sure you have downsized first and pick that exactly right thing for your space. So.
And then in that case with kids also interacting, is that what you're describing, May? Like people coming in and needing to know where things are? Or just you?
Oop, you're on mute again. Sorry, we can't hear you.
You're on mute, May.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just that also different people, we have, kids in the family. So somebody might eat something, somebody might think it's gone.
Yeah.
Just being visible helps. Yeah.
That was making me think that labels for those containers then, so that everybody knows where it goes when you're done.
You have to know your own. I mean, you've got to do what works for your family. And yeah, some people love labels because this is like shouting out what it is. Some people say like, hey, I'm going to give each kid their own bin so they know where things are. It's really just evaluating like what your family's learning styles are and then finding a good solution. But I will tell you, May, if you want to, I will totally volunteer. If you want to send me some photos and then give me some more information about your situation. I love solving problems like this. I love solving unsolvable problems. So one thing, I'm going to throw something in here. Just, this goes back to the, like, don't necessarily look at social media and then decide that like, that's how I have to do things. So my only other commentary about storage solutions is make sure you know the reality of the storage solution that you're getting. So one example, a lot of people love the home edit because it's beautiful. They have beautiful photos, right? But some people love, like, as you could see in my own pantry, I do have some of those storage containers for certain things. But one thing I want you to think about is the reality of, am I going to continue to do this? So if you do that for your whole pantry, think about, I get home from the grocery store and then I have to, it's called decanting. I have to decant all my cereal into individual containers. If that's your jam, please do it. But also what I see in a lot of people's houses is they have all these storage solutions that are absolutely not being used because it's a lot of work. So you're adding work to the process. So just know thyself and how you will actually use a storage solution too. It's
also frustrating because the cereal doesn't always fit in that container.
Correct.
And then you have the container and the excess cereal, and that drives me insane. I try.
Absolutely. 100% correct. So yes, it almost never fits. That's like not the right dimensions. And so then you have doubled the amount of stuff you have. So it's actually not a help at all. So that's kind of my point on storage solutions. So
I tried that. I was like, oh, it's going to look so good.
Yeah.
And I have the extra.
If you're motivated to keep it up, that's awesome, because some people really are, and it's their jam. So, which is totally fine. Looking through chat. Any
problems left and right. I love it.
I try. Does anybody have like a situation that is perfectly like super challenging? Oh, yay. People are motivated. That's exciting.
Yeah. Everybody's saying they're motivated. I just, I was going to ask you something, and I'm just curious, as an organizer, how do you deal with just like when you walk in and you see everything? Like, do you ever get scared and then like have to like calm yourself down and just be like, I can do this? Or are you like literally fearless at this point? You've done enough that you just like nothing scares you anymore?
No, it's a great question. So there have only been a couple of houses that have been like I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do here. I'm going to have to like think on the fly. That is, and I'm talking very limited circumstances. And in those circumstances, they were really true hoarding spectrum cases, that's very different. This is one thing I will say. People frequently will come to me and be like, I think I might be a hoarder. And they have like 2 things on their counter. And I'm like, nope, that's a very overused word. Hoarding is a very specific psychological disorder, but I have had a couple of people on the hoarding spectrum, and that one is a little bit harder because you do go like, boy, this does feel a little daunting. But one of the great things about having someone come in and work in your home is I'm agnostic. It's not my stuff, and I don't look at it every day. And so I look at it, to me, it's a puzzle that we have to solve. And to you, you're looking at it and you're seeing like, that's my son's bat, that's my coat that I haven't worn, and that's a pile of mail I haven't gone through. It's very personal for you, versus for me, I'm like, cool, it's a project. And I know that I can help this person through this. So it's just like, it's hard to explain, but I don't usually get overwhelmed. I'm just like, I get excited about how we can make things better and like how happy people are going to be when we're done. So sometimes I make people cry, And that sounds bad, but it's usually a good way. So I don't usually make people cry a bad way. And that's like a really amazing thing. Like when people are so happy that that's the emotion that's expressed. And it's really like, it's an honor to be a part of that process with people. So.
Reminds me of when Sarin talks about organizing people's finances.
Yes.
I think you both are like similar in that way. You come into spaces where people are blocked emotionally and it feels overwhelming, and you make order and then they feel so much better. And yeah.
Well, you can apply these principles to so many things. I've actually given presentations before on how to KonMari your finances, because it really is it's a very similar thing. You categorize things, you determine like where everything is. So do you have 7 401ks at 14 different places? You know, you gather all the things together, you decide what serves you, what doesn't serve you. You clean it up, you give it an organizational solution. Like it really, you can apply this to so many parts of your life. You can apply it to your job. You can say like, does my job spark joy for me? What parts of my job spark joy for me? You can really take this rubric and say, yeah, I need to just categorize these things. What your email, you know, how do I make my email better? We're all overwhelmed by email. There are ways you can use the KonMari method to apply to that too. So I find that like once you get into it, you can say like, there's so much relevance here and there's so many things I can do with it. I know that I'm like way over my time. I am absolutely happy to keep answering questions. I do not have a lot going on, so happy to keep answering questions, but I also really mean this. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have something kind of personal that you want to talk about, or just if you realize that you've forgotten something. I am absolutely happy to answer it, and you can send this presentation out to everyone too. It's totally fine.
Thank you so much for your time and for staying over extra and for answering questions. Gosh. I know people are looking forward to this a lot, and hopefully we can have you come and speak again for those who missed us.